I'd like to welcome everyone. Looks like we're going to kick off here our 13th weekly meeting. Just a refresher on the format, so we'll give a quick schedule update, work that's been done, and then work that we're planning to do. With that, then we can answer any questions, address any concerns that those present may have, and then we close it and just have a little more project-specific meeting. So with that, I'll give it to Ryan with Meyer, and he can give us our schedule update for this coming week.
All right, thanks, Corey. Well, this last week we were somewhat delayed by weather. Probably the 2-inch rain we got on Sunday didn't help much. Now we've delayed the traffic flip to this coming Friday, if everything goes well, with the concrete work pending and the weather pending, of course. But that's really the target date that we've got in mind for that is this Friday to move everything from the northbound lanes to the southbound lanes of 61, and right after that we'll get into next Monday we're going to start into 61 with the removals going down the northbound lanes, removal of the surface, and then start into the water, storm, and sanitary sewer following right behind. Really, I mean, everything else has stayed the course. It's just we just got delayed a little bit this last week, and we're hoping to make up as much as we can coming down the backside.
So I guess we could elaborate a little bit more with the traffic shift. So the plan would be we'd shift on Friday. That would be when the shift would actually take place. They're actually starting to shift some of the barrier already, which is, I think, going to logistically benefit the shift greatly, and having that barrier already placed. And then it's just a matter of getting the new tube delineators down and the taping to delineate the two through lanes. But last week we were talking about how we shift the barrier and still maintain traffic and stuff. So I think doing this barrier shift early is gonna significantly help that effort. So you'll start to see that work already happen, and that's in the plan for the shift on Friday. Additional to that, as we've talked several times now, we'll be shifting back to Fulton for the traffic signal, and that would take place on Friday as well. Franklin would be just a right in, right out, and then Fulton would be where the left turn pockets would be to actually cross 61. And then additional to that, just a general update again on how that northbound work will take place. We're actually going to start right in Old West Main, as Ryan said. There's some limited utility work there yet, a little bit of sanitary, some water main, some storm sewer. And that's the bulk of the utility work within the northbound side. Then it's just mainly connecting all the services to the northbound properties. And the plan is to work that west to east, start right there at Old West Main. Utility work would be first, the service work, and then the roadway work would fall right behind that, and then the concrete work would fall behind that. So it'd be west to east there, pretty much with every scope of work is the intention. Maybe a little bit of skipping just to plan the intersections accordingly. So don't be concerned if you see equipment taking place farther east than maybe where all the other stuff is. I mean, they still are able to work within the whole northbound lane, but they're going to try to work it, I guess west east progressively. I guess with that, I don't know if I have any other real main points to be mentioning in regards to the big shift, but I don't know if Jay, if you have anything to add. Or
just what Ryan had talked about earlier is getting that storm sewer. You might get a crew down there quicker to get the storm sewer done at Franklin to finish off that low point. Just because of the heavier rains, we don't have that piping to the proper size, so we've been noticing that's where we're getting the flooding in with the heavy rains. So you'll see work going on in Old West Main, but they might have another crew further down working at the Franklin intersection with storm sewer work. But for the most part, the utility work, sewer and water, besides at Old West Main, sewer and water the rest of the way is just service connections. All the main lines were done are done and under the concrete right now. So, I mean, the plan is, Ryan, correct, that this should go much faster than the southbound side.
Yeah, it definitely should. I mean, at each intersection, we still have to go across and connect with a main with a bigger size pipe, but there's a lot less larger diameter pipe on this side.
Ron, you have anything that you can think of to add, or some questions?
Okay. not to put you on the spot, Ryan, but with the concrete work going a lot slower than I had anticipated here last week and this week, this goes out to August 1st and 2nd, and there's no concrete being laid again yet at this point. There's 3 more weeks to the contract after this for the completion. Are they going to be pouring concrete immediately after this schedule that is laying here?
That's the intent. Yeah, I mean, we've got to get them on board with it again. But similar to the way we did the first side, we would get half of it cleaned up and give them half. I mean, they want to come in when we're all done and out of the way and just have the whole job site to themselves. But we don't really have that luxury, so we're going to have to give them probably half. We'll probably get down to Franklin or Fulton area and get everything cleaned up behind us, and then bring them in to get caught up again, and then it'll just be the last push on the last 3 or 4 blocks down there at the end.
Do that mainline paving up to that point and then stick around and do the curbing and sidewalks immediately
That
following.
would be the hope, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There will be a little bit of benefit on this northbound side in the sense that once we get the actual roadway paving done, there is some flexibilities on how we can get that off-roadway concrete completed, whether we restrict northbound to just 1 through lane, we do a right lane closure. That would give us some accessibility still to the those side street curb radiuses and the sidewalk work and stuff like that. So to answer your question, I'm hopeful that the mainline concrete work would be a preference to get the roadway back open, and then we will have a little more flexibility though, because we'll have wider roadway width now to work with, and so that's an important thing to note even as we progress with the construction, that the intent is to get the roadway done, all the work within the roadway, get traffic back on, and then we'll be doing some temporary lane closures the best we, as required, I guess. Still maintaining through traffic on 61, maintaining access off the roadway the best we can. But there will be some closures, some right lane closures. There'll be some limited side street, maybe some temporary driveway closures to do the rest of the work. There's a significant amount of landscaping work to do, and then again, maybe some completion of that north side concrete work too would be under right lane closure. So hopefully a little more flexibility there just to keep that expedited and hit that target completion date.
Another, we talked about it last week, and I just wanted to see what our thinking is on Old West Main. Is there still a possibility that once your sewer and water work is completed in there, we can try to get that open to right in, right out traffic on the Old West Main connection there? I know we're going to basically be out with that intersection until toward the end of the project, correct, Corey, because of the signal work that needs to happen? So we can't fully open that up, but there was talk that we could maybe get a right in, right out put back in place.
Yeah, I think the intent always, at least how I understood it, is Old West Main was intended to be closed during the northbound phase. Again, we've closed it a little bit sooner to accommodate the accesses off of Old West Main, literally. The intent still, I think, going forward would be to have that the intersection now of 61 and Old West Main on the northbound side. I think the intent is to have that concrete pavement before we open Old West Main back up to right in, right out. So that would mean completing the utility work, completing the road prep work, and then the concrete pavement. I think the hope again is by building west to east that would be the first area paved with concrete. And then there will be some bituminous work to tie in Old West Main from the intersection going back to the north. But absolute worst case, we could maybe do that under traffic and temporary aggregate there just to get that access back open. But I think originally the intent was to have all the work there before we open it, just to avoid complicating communications and giving the contractor the space to do the work. Now that proves the concrete guys can't get in, for many weeks after all the work's there done. We'll have to reevaluate. But that was the intent, I think, as far as I understood it.
Okay.
But it'd be the first portion open because we're building west to east, and then it'd be open to right in, right out is the intent. But if we're getting to a point where it's closed too long and logistically have to do something more creative to get that back open, then certainly the preference would be probably to wait till the concrete work is done and cured, but
otherwise you're looking at shutting it down.
That's right. That's what we're trying to avoid, is to have it open for just a week, to be reclosed then for a week and a half, and then open again finally. So that was the thought, is to just to reopen it when it can be open for the rest of the time.
The concrete work for that intersection, does that just go to the radiuses?
does.
And it's
That's
mostly
right.
bituminous then, the rest of the way to the
Yep,
connection?
Old West Main, the bulk of it is literally, the portion of Old West Main is bituminous. Yep,
Okay.
it's just off of 61 is the concrete portion.
Okay.
But there's a lot of median work
We'll
there and
reevaluate
stuff.
that
and-
because that's an important intersection. It's important to our, the businesses down there as well. And actually, with the way all the construction going on, it's a connection that would be nice to have back open for people to drop kind of off the highway. But we understand that we have to evaluate where we're at with the project and see how that goes. So, Steve, do you have anything on the utility side that? Okay. Anything more to add, Ron? Any
I
questions?
guess one other thing, did that conductivity get done? I hadn't heard the locating. Okay, it's all passed?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Should we take
Yeah.
questions? Anyone have any questions at all or concerns that they'd like to have addressed?
Can you tell me on Hill, on the corner of Hill and 61 there, that's because it looks like some delays, if that's going to be by the end of the week or like quicker?
What's that,
Yeah, it looks like some gradation adjustments or anything.
Yeah, you're concerned with the driveway to Verizon there? That's your concern about getting that finished, or it's going to be the main focus right now. To be completely honest, main focus right now is the main line work along 61. In order to get the traffic shift for that to happen, there's going to be some side street work, some driveway work, some ped ramp work that won't be completed this week. But the concrete contractors communicated they're going to stay on site to do that work. So specifically, your access there at Verizon, you'll have your Main Street access that will be open. The intent is to have that poured this week before the shift. Now I'm not guaranteeing there's cure on that before Friday, but it's going to be poured. And then the hopeful early next week, as long as that has strength, those will be open. Then the side street work is just going to continue to progress. I can give you more specifics on your driveway, but after this meeting, I don't know how they're sequencing things along 61 there, like Hill Street before Pine or Cedar. I can't answer to that, but yeah, we do. It's important to note that not all concrete work is going to be done by Friday. Just the concrete work along the 61 portion that can't be accessed once we make the shift. So they're working hard. There's just a lot of concrete, to be honest, and that with the weather, and so they're making an effort to try to get everyone's driveways and accommodate accesses and stuff. And it's just going to continue to happen until it all gets done. So that's the honest answer, but.
Yeah, so the driveway into your business there on Main Street will be poured. Now we'll check to see what the cure is on that, but we don't want to open that until it's strong enough to take traffic, of course. So, but it will be poured this week.
Well, a lot of that can be accessed off that side road, so I don't know if they're going to be able to get all of that. There's a lot of concrete missing right there right now.
Yeah, on the side road.
Right.
And that's
Yeah,
where
from the
Corey was
side
saying that will actually happen after the traffic shift because their focus is getting the concrete
Right.
poured. That's along the main line, which would be one of your apron. Which probably, Josh, you said today they'll probably pour that apron at Verizon.
I think they have it formed up already. Maybe not.
Well, the intersection
The intersection has.
is, that's framed up. I don't know that my access, I don't see anything there.
Yeah, that's not. They don't have forms on that yet.
Yeah, off of Hill Street, yeah. And to be completely honest, that probably won't be done this week, to be honest. It'll probably be next week when the Hill Street, all those side street driveways won't be a preference this week. I'm not saying they're not going to get to some of them, but I promise you the concrete work won't all be done by Friday. The intent, though, is that they're on site and we can get to all from the side streets, and that's the hope here, is to get the traffic switched so we can continue to progress on the northbound side. But then that allows them still to continue on the southbound, just off of the main street. It's all the side street work. And there's a large amount of driveways that are off of the side streets, so those will continue to get built. It's just going to take a little bit more time than what this week offers.
And Josh should be, if you need to meet with Josh right in the field there to make sure, of course, keeping access, whatever we have to do to keep access, we're doing that with gravel drives and so forth. But any other questions? Anything more to add, Corey, as far as
Not for our project,
Update?
no. I'll give Jeff an opportunity to update on his, but I think
Yeah. Well, I guess the big thing we're shooting for is, as you've heard, is that Friday transition of traffic. So that's weather dependent, and get our concrete in place, and we can make that shift. So, and Corey, we did also do a little bit of traffic control on the far east side of the project already, didn't we? Aren't the lanes shifted, kind of coming underneath the 63 bridge there?
I know we talked about last week, but I couldn't honestly tell you if that works.
here.
Jason, did that get done?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right. So you're noticing some barrels. I was just in preparation for this lane shift. So you're seeing some barrels out there, kind of east of Potter Street, actually. So that's what that has to do with this lane shift that we're doing on Friday, or proposing to do on Friday. No more questions. I'll turn it over to Jeff and give an update on the overlay project in the Burnside area and also south of town.
All right, Jay, thanks. Things are progressing, as you were probably aware last week. A lot was going on up on the north side of town. Contractors getting after it. They had two different milling machines and two different paving operations going at the same time to try to keep this thing moving forward. So early yesterday, the milling was completed. So they've moved out, and now we just have the two paving crews working, and they're going to continue to be going just doing laps north to south and north to south. So they're going to continue that work. They'll be shut down a little bit in the middle of next week because they want to get down to the Sevastopol area. The Sevastopol area is scheduled right now to be completed by the end of next week. So they plan to get wherever they're at paving wise. They'll end up shifting down there when the widening there for the left turn lane is completed. They want to get down there, get that all paved up so they can get that detour pulled and get that area back open. So they're planning to be down there about the middle of next week to do the paving, and then by the end of next week, as the schedule sits and weather dependent, that detour will be lifted and all that traffic control will go away and everything south of town will be back to normal. Then they'll move back up here on the north side of town and continue paving. The plan is right now that'll be done by the 31st. Of course, there'll still be a few striping and a few other operations that have to take place, but hopefully by the end of by the 31st here of July, that all the paving on the north side of town will be completed. And we haven't really discussed, but I think at that point we'll be pushing very hard for all those barrels to be pulled, and I think the rest of the remaining operations with striping and things can be done under traffic. So we can get rid of those lane closures and things won't look so orange on the north side of town. And then from that point on, of course, then we still have the section from the Wisconsin River Bridge down to Semstone. That'll be the next step in the operation, and they'll move down there and start the milling and paving operations there. So still way ahead of the overall schedule. I think the plan is to be done before Labor Day. A lot of things are going to take place between now and then, but things are looking pretty good. The weather hasn't been quite as much of a hindrance, but at this point, of course, with the paving, if it rains for any length of time, it's just not very economical for them to stick around. And they have 15 trucks and all the laborers sitting around there, so if it starts to rain, they usually shut operations down and go away. So pray for dry weather, and they'll keep on moving. And one thing I've been hearing a little bit about, I know there's been some frustration. All the accesses are still there, but when the paving operation goes by, that operation is fairly long. I mean, from the front of the paver, of course, we got to have 3 or 4 trucks lined up in front of them, and then behind them there's 3 different rollers, and they do different things. And the very back one is the cold roller that's putting the finishing touches on, and that can be, depending on weather, can be quite a bit behind the paving operation. And until that happens, we really don't want traffic going through those intersections at that point. So. As soon as there's a person standing there, they're directing traffic, they probably don't want you coming through, but as soon as that last roller's gone, then everything's right back open again. So please be patient. It takes probably a little longer than you might expect, particularly if it's hotter days. It takes a little while for that asphalt to cool off. So they're doing the best they can to get through there. They don't want to be any more impactful than they have been. I know they did have law enforcement out there a couple different times in different locations last week. It sounds like that worked pretty well. So hopefully, I'm not sure if they plan to do that. Right now, they're kind of finishing up their first lift of pavement, coming back from 19 into town here. They still have the shoulders, and then, of course, that final wear course that'll go on top that will be what you drive on for the next 25 years. So there's still plenty of going back and forth. They got to do all the side roads. Then they come back, usually do that a second time, probably with a different crew. So still a lot of asphalt to go down on our side of town, but they do expect to have that right now. Schedule holds with weather. It will be done by the 31st. So on the north side of town.
So then after that, Jeff, you said from the let's say it's the 31st, they would shift. First part of August, they'd start the mill and overlay on the section.
Yep, south of town.
South of town from.
About the Wisconsin River Bridge there on Highway 61, and then head south to about the Sunstone area. There's a bunch of little pockets there we work around. Some other pavings taking place over the last couple of years, so it's not quite as much work on the south. There's no other culverts.
But a similar setup as
similar
what you've seen in
yeah.
Burnside. It's going to be not closed off. There'll be one lane.
Yep, be one lane
in each direction.
They'll bring in the milling machine, try to get them out ahead of them, so there's no big issues there, and they'll have a lane. We haven't really discussed it, but I'm sure they'll plan to have a lane closure both directions for that length. Although there's separate pockets there, so I guess I'm going to have to figure out how they plan to. We really haven't discussed fully, but it's easier to have them. The milling machine gets out front; they're not in the way, and then they just go and run their laps, and then the paving operation comes in right behind it. So there's nothing else to do down there. No concrete work, no pipe, just a mill and overlay. So that should go a little bit quicker, obviously, than on our side of town. So.
Okay, because there is a transition then when it drops from its 4-lane down to the 2-lane for that stretch to get to Semstone.
True.
So there is a section in there that's going to be. I haven't seen their layout or what they're planning to do as far as traffic control through that section.
Right, we haven't really fully discussed that, and you're right. That's a good point. There'd be two different little segments of this. So.
Yeah, there's that 2-lane segment and a 4-lane segment through there. But
when we get to the 2-lane, that would just be a flagger operation then for sure.
Operation.
And go that route. So, and maybe they just plan to do that with the whole section because it's just maybe just be simpler that way too. So,
okay.
But I do know they like to get the milling machine out in front of them, so they're not waiting for that. So.
Jeff, did you determine what you're going to do in the area by the 63 bridge over 61?
We haven't had that conversation yet.
With the rough road there, but it's going to be replaced in 18.
Right.
But it's awfully rough.
Right.
I was just meeting with Greg Paulson at District 6, and he was going to talk to you about that.
Okay.
I'm sure this week he was going to see if there's something that they can do to get us through to that point when it's completely rebuilt, if it's some patching or a thin coat or something like that. But he wanted to talk to you about that.
Okay, I haven't run into him in the last couple of weeks, so thank you for bringing it up to him. So.
Yep.
So.
Any questions for Jeff regarding the overlay project? Anyone else? Anything to add? Ron? Got anything? Okay, thank you for coming.